This is an NBC Palm Springs special report. Coronavirus facts, not fear. Presented by East Valley COVID-19 testing site, serving residents of eastern Coachella Valley.
Joining us now is Kevin Duncliffe. Kevin's been putting together some graphs of COVID-19 increases in the Coachella Valley. And these graphs make it easier to put raw numbers into context and track what appears to be an increase in new cases valley-wide. Kevin, thanks for being here.
Pleasure.
All right, let me begin with, every day we put up the numbers. How many new cases have tested positive and how many people have died? Are those the numbers we should be focused on, or are we missing the bigger picture?
Those are definitely numbers that we should be focusing on. The bigger picture, I suppose, is how many tests are we running? The more tests you run, the more new cases you find. So that is also something to bear in mind. Unfortunately, I don't have the same kind of numbers for testing locally here in the Valley. I just have the county-wide numbers. But I do have the local stats for new cases and deaths. And so those are the ones that I can aggregate and publish for the Valley.
Right. In your latest graphs and charts, you're showing some alarming increases in cities like Coachella, Cathedral City, Indio. Mecca's up 400%, which in fairness went from 3 to 15. So It's still relatively small raw numbers. But what are those huge increases in those specific cities? Did they tell you anything?
Well, I would say over the last few weeks, they've certainly been concentrated mostly in the East Valley communities. So you're definitely seeing those communities going up higher than elsewhere. Although I will say Cathedral City's also had a bit of a bump up. We know from news reports that Imperial County and Mexicali have had a tremendous number of cases. That's one of the hottest spots in the region. And so it's possible that some of that is affecting what we're seeing in the East Valley as well. But, I'm just seeing the numbers. I'm not out there on the ground like a lot of the folks who are reporting on this.
Right. And we should.
I will say, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, we should make it clear. Yeah, you're not a doctor. You're not analyzing the data. You are you're a stats guy. You're a numbers guy, and you're looking at raw numbers. But have you noticed a significant increase in the past week or two that you hadn't been seeing in the previous weeks?
Yes, I would say in the last 3 weeks, since about the middle of May. And I would say that it's particularly accelerated in the last week. In fact, today's numbers, which I think are by far the biggest one-day increase I've ever seen in the whole time I've been tracking this, which is over 2 months now. So it does, the new case numbers do appear to be accelerating quite dramatically. How much of that is due to increased testing versus just increased spread and more people getting sick is a little hard for me to say, but certainly looking at hospitalizations, those are up. And I've heard anecdotal evidence from doctors and folks in the field that suggest they are seeing a lot of cases out there.
Right. Now, this sudden increase, right? There was some hope that this would act like other viruses do, where in the hot months it would kind of go away, though Australia gave us a pretty early indication that that wasn't going to happen because it didn't happen there, and they were in their summer. So that's obviously not happening because the past 2 or 3 weeks, we've spent a lot of time with temperatures well above normal. And for us, that puts us into triple digits, which historically would take care of any kind of virus outbreak, especially your more traditional seasonal flu. So the fact that we're seeing increases now coinciding with a loosening up of the stay-at-home rules, is this the most logical, connection?
It's possible. I have tried to look through, the data that I have as deeply as possible and try to see if I could see any correlation with, testing or any other factors. And from what I have, which is just mostly what the county and the state publish, I don't see that kind of a thing. So it does seem like that they're just, unfortunately, there just are more cases out there.
Right.
And I, certainly don't see the warmer weather having an effect, unless, for all I know, would it be even worse if the temperature was cooler? I have no idea. But as I say, since the middle of May, I am seeing anything but a slowdown. I'm seeing the opposite.
Right, and that was the idea too, right? Is that we would first stop the increase by plateauing, and then every other country really that dealt with this saw a significant drop off after they plateaued. We seem to have plateaued and stayed there. Are your stats showing you that as well?
No, I mean, I would say that in the Valley specifically, we plateaued in April and maybe started to even go down a little bit in early May. And then things turned around and started going up. I do know that the county had been putting out an increased effort for testing during that time, so that might have explained part of it initially. But now the rate at which I'm seeing the case numbers go up is like nothing I've seen before, especially, as I say, over the past week. So I would say, kind of a plateau somewhere in April, maybe a little bit dip in early May, and then since then it's just been up, up, up.
Right. You mentioned the fact that the truth is we're testing more than ever, so it would stand to reason we would have more positive cases. What number should people at home watching right now, what number should we be focused on? Hospitalizations, deaths, recoveries? I mean, what number do you think we should be most focused on as just regular consumers at home watching the news and trying to keep our family safe?
I think the number that I'm most focused on is the number of new cases that are being reported within the last 7 days, and that's the primary number that I've been updating every day. That's telling you basically in the last 7 days, we've had, I think it's now 620 cases just in that period of time been confirmed. That doesn't mean that people necessarily got sick in the last 7 days. They probably got sick before that, got tested, and now the results are in. So these things are always a little bit delayed. But that is the number I focus on the most, because that's kind of a leading indicator. It gives you an idea that of where we're headed. Deaths, unfortunately, of course, happen later. So they're not as much of a leading indicator as the new cases are. That's the best thing I can say. Right.
And then there's an old expression, and forgive me if I get this wrong, but it's something like there's lies, damn lies, and statistics. So I guess my question to that is there any way to take these numbers and make a more positive story about it? Or conversely, is there a way to take these numbers and make it look worse than it really is?
I really try to be very fair in the way that I express the numbers. So, like when I talk about this number of cases in the 7 days, I'm choosing that because I think that gives a pretty decent picture of where we are. I really try very hard to avoid putting too much spin or too much commentary on the numbers. I know that it's, as you say, it's very easy to take any set of statistics and, reach this conclusion or that conclusion. And I try not to reach too many conclusions. I really just try to put the data out there and point people to what I think are the important numbers to focus on and let people draw their own conclusions.
Yeah, and based strictly on the numbers, would you say you're more concerned now than you were a month ago?
Oh, absolutely, yes. I mean, I would say a month ago, I was starting to think maybe the very worst of it might even be behind us. I didn't, but I can't say that now. The numbers now are far worse than they were a month ago, just in terms of the number of cases. And there is always that caveat about testing out there. But even in the headline testing statistics that the county puts out there, I don't see, testing is up, but it's not up as much as all that. I think the current countywide testing is up maybe 25% from where it was a couple weeks ago. But the case numbers, especially in the Valley, are up way more than that.
Yeah. Is there, do you have access to the number of tests given and the percentage of those tests that turn out to be positive? Do you know what that percentage is?
Yes, countywide, yes. I think countywide, I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's a little under 6%. That's on one of the state websites. I don't have great data for that locally. The county does publish some weekly reports that give a positivity rate for the 4th district, which is mostly the population is mostly the Coachella Valley. And according to them, the positivity rates recently in the 4th district have been over 10%. But I don't know what tests or what time period that's based on exactly. So it's a little hard for me to say. But a positivity rate of 10% is pretty high.
Yeah, that would seem extremely high. And how does that compare to, say, other parts of the world where the outbreak has been, well, more contained, where it went up quickly, leveled off, and came down quickly? 6 to 10% positive cases for every test done seems like a really high number, or is that fairly typical around the world?
I have not followed positivity rates around the world that closely. I don't know. I would say that certainly it's a lot higher than statewide in California. You're looking, statewide, you're looking at something like, I want to say about 5%. I don't have it in front of me, but 10% is high. I would say that's not typical.
All right. He's Kevin Duncliffe. He does stats because it's his idea of a good time, and we thank you for sharing your knowledge and information today.
All right. Thank you very much.
We'll be right back after the break.